everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Way back there? And there? Okay, we're about ready to start here. You know, it's funny, it seems like it's been months since we've been together. I don't know, but anyway, I'm glad we're up and running again, and the crowd is just great. More than we expected. But then that speaks to the caliber of our speaker here, Nelson Shaffer. Now, my mother, Mary Carter's here again. There's my mom right there. And my beautiful wife, Paulette, back there. Hello, Paulette. George can't make it today. The Minister of Propaganda could not get out of Columbus today. Edinburgh, close enough though. As usual, many thanks to the Legion and to the girls that are waiting on us. Please be generous with the servers. We had to cancel or postpone a bunch of programs, as you know. The first one we had to cancel was James Lee Hutchinson, who flew in B-17s. We'll try and get him on here later. He's 95 years old, but still going strong. Jake Butler's going to give a program on transportation in Monroe County. We had to postpone that. Jeremy Boshears, who did the covered bridge program, had updated it and was going to redo that, which he will at some point now. Brad Cook of IU Photo Archives has a lot more vintage photos to show. And Michael White and Adam Stillwell will give a presentation on the origins and history of CATS TV. Now, CATS would usually be here, but they can't be out and about yet, so they loaned us a camera right there. First time we've done it this way. And I'm going to blame it on Kelly if it don't work right. No, it'll be fine. We want to get it up on YouTube. I think this will allow us to do that. Now, as far as next month's program, I can't tell you for sure yet. It's scheduled to be Jim Capshew on the life of Herman B. Wells, whom he's written a book about. But I haven't been able to get a hold of him lately, so we'll just have to wait and see. It'll be something next month, and we'll all find out in a couple of weeks, but I'm not sure which one yet. And then Derek Ritchie was scheduled in October to give one on the demolition of the Morton Hunter Mansion and the birth of the preservation movement in 1974. And then Christine Friesel in November was scheduled to give a program on the Great Depression in Monroe County. So we'll see how it all plays out. So today we have Nelson Shaffer, and he's been a big supporter of us for several years. And I asked him if he had a program to do, and he says, I sure do. It's on geodes. And something which I don't know much about, so my guess is we're all going to learn a lot about geodes today, building with them and everything else. So without further ado, here's Nelson.
You may want to rethink that after you've heard me. I am just delighted. When I came in, I saw 4 people. I thought, okay, we're going to go. And it turns out you're all hiding out. So thank you for coming in and braving the virus and stuff. I hope to make it worthwhile. And at the risk of annoying my wife, I want to share a passion with you. When I came here to interview for a job at the Geological Survey 45 years or more ago, I saw zipping down the road these white blobs of things. And slowed down, and I noted them to be geodes. And I know a little bit about geodes, so I took the job when they offered it, and it was spent 40 years with the Geological Survey at Indiana University. It's a research institute. I did a lot of work on applied geology, limestone, shale, brick, just sand and gravel, all sorts of prosaic things that you have to make a country. But I also have this passion for minerals and collecting minerals and showing them off. I have some nice geodes over here, and somebody else brought one that's even better than mine. and a poster that I did that's available from the Geological Survey. And I'm going to talk about, in general, geodes and then using them to build things. You guys who grew up around here don't think much of geodes except, you know, I fall over them, they hit the lawnmower, they're an annoyance. But they are an enigma and they're fascinating, geochemically, mineralogically, and I've snuck this kind of work in between my real work for many years. This, we're starting out with a picture, and I'll tell you a little bit more later. But this is an entire house made out of geodes. It's in Seymour, Indiana, right along Route 50, out near the Walmart. And I think it's especially appropriate because if, we'll see some things closer, it's the psychic's house. You know, crystal power and all of that. So it's in a geode house. Okay, how do I make it go? Oh. Well, I need to advance the slide. This is my lovely wife.
It's advancing the slide, it's not behind it. Ew. You'll make it.
Now you see the brains of the operation.
Yeah, that's obvious.
Now, she's a saint. She put up with me so far. We all know the term geode, but there's a technical definition. And this is one that I made, picked up by other people. And it's a whole bunch of gobbledygook. But they're actually these sort of roundish quartz globs that occur inside rocks of other kinds. There are other geodes that exist in igneous areas, and they have a totally different etiology. But I'm going to talk about our own sort of geodes that occur here in limestone. It's a very typical geode, and it's denser than the stone around it. It's harder to all get out. We'll get into that in a minute. They usually have what I call a knobbly surface, little round things. It makes them hard. I had friends who used to do geode bowling. They'd set up used beer bottles and roll a geode down to see what they could hit. It was making quite a noise. And it was totally random. So, and I had other, well, cave people, they're never friends, but they had outhouse bowling. If somebody had entered this outhouse in a sinkhole, they'd try to roll rocks down. But they gave up on the geodes because they were totally random. They started using bowling balls. So if you, this is the first time you've probably ever heard of outhouse bowling. See, it was worth the price of admission.
Picking up the sound? Oh, yeah.
This is a geode that is on, it's in captivity at the Geological Survey, which is unfortunately closed right now. It's almost 350 pounds. They do not get much bigger than this. They are often much smaller, so between, you know, like half an ounce and 350 pounds is about the size. There are stories of geodes the size of Volkswagens out by Lake Monroe, but I've never found them. And if you do, please let me know. I have cards, and I'm sure you will all know things that I've missed, and I want you to tell me about this, because I speak often, and I always like to learn things. Now, geodes generally have this spherical body. They're almost always quartz. They have a cauliflower-like external. They're up to several feet. The ones that are hollow are especially preferred by collectors, and sometimes there are secondary minerals in these hollow crystals, some of which are quite exotic. All geodes have an outer round rind, something called chalcedony, which is a special kind of quartz that you'll see. It's very distinct from the host rock, and sometimes it even pushes apart the bedding. Geode's made of the Monroe quartz, SiO2, and quartz is just harder than hell. This is silica surrounded equal dimensionally by oxygen, and this is the crystal structure of the quartz. It results in extremely, extremely hard and tough material, which lasts through time. Much of your sandstones and other sedimentary rock or quartz grains that existed in igneous rocks and otherwise and went through sometimes several cycles of weathering, and it retained its quartziness. Now, microscopic quartz makes up this chalcedony rind and many parts of the geode. Here you see the I'm challenged. The little intergrowths of quartz makes them very, very tough. Now in geodes, there are several different varieties. If you've been around and you've cracked some open, you can see there are lots of them. All the things have the chalcedony rind, and we'll see that in a minute. But sometimes have mosaic quartz. Sometimes they have quartz crystals, nice geometric shapes. Sometimes they have many, many little tiny quartz crystals. And there's occasionally, especially in weathered ones, these, that's called botryoidal or mammillary structure. If the thing is open, there are lots of secondary minerals. And these are prized by collectors. You see people along the roads, they're trying to get the empty quartz. For mineralogists, it's quite fascinating because almost every kind of quartz that we know of exists within these. And we're going to see some beakite, chalcedony, mosaic crystals, mogonite, botryoidal, dewdrop, and druzy, which looks like the crowd, which is drowsy. There's the rind, and you can see it's very uniform in color. It's usually this grayish, and it's just tougher nails. Now the mosaic quartz are crystals that didn't get their full expression in there. It looks like a jigsaw puzzle. That's in here, and then you see the crystalline form intruding into the center there. Magnified, you can see the difference of the quartz. This is the mosaic quartz, and the chalcedony here is really very small and very intergrown. This makes the geodes incredibly tough. These things were formed 350 million years ago, shortly after deposition of the limestone. They existed all that time, and then they get weathered, and during the weathering they're subjected to all sorts of mechanical and chemical forces that try to tear the geode apart. It just sort of sits there and laughs. Some of these geodes that you pick up have been out rolling around for 300 million years. Let's see any of you do that. This picture also shows little bright inclusions, and that's anhydrite. And that comes into play when I talk about the origin in just a minute. These are some of the secondary minerals, and some of them are really weird. Phonosite, jambrite are almost not seen otherwise. But people really like the calcites, barite, dolomite, pyrite. Millerite is a rare nickel sulfide that's here, and several others. This is most common, is the little sort of grayish brown calcites in the quartz, and this is druzy quartz. You can't see that when I do that. Okay. I need another hand. This is druzy quartz. This is the calcite. These are some observations. Geodes usually occur in certain specific beds. A lot of them are very small or solid, and people don't collect these. They're there, they just don't collect them. There are concentric forms of quartz, up to 7 kinds. Secondary minerals are really tough, They seem to have grown by expansion. They're relic evaporites. Sometimes the geodes don't form completely, but they're crushed. Chert is another variety of quartz, but it's very different from the geodes, and they formed at different times. They're sometimes relic fossils, and there's usually a complex history. We did some work with students. Most geodes are small and solid. The more insoluble, acid-insoluble residue in the limestone, which hosts them, the more geodes there are. Most of the quartz comes from feldspar and clays, which are in the native rock. There's a way to tell the temperature of these, and most of them formed about 100 degrees centigrade. And oxygen isotopes imply that the quartz comes from the residue. Now, geodes don't occur just anywhere. We're in a very blessed region in the green there. The overall geometry of the geology here is there are big mud puddles called basins. And these slowly subsided through geologic time and got filled up with residue from the Appalachian Mountains, which were washed in by rivers and filled in these basins. The Illinois Basin occupies much of Indiana, and it has 15,000 feet of sediments. And right along the outcrop where we are, there's a limestone that does contain geodes, some gypsum deposits and other things. Geologists like to talk about stratigraphy, and this is the way rocks sit on top of each other, and we can tell the older ones that are on the bottom from the younger ones that are up at the top. And in this part of the country, there's a whole bunch of these different kind of strata called the Blue River Group, and that's got the St. Louis limestone, which overlies the building stone. Then the Sanders Group, which contains the building stone, and also at the bottom, something called Harrodsburg limestone, which is especially prominent down around the town of Harrodsburg. And at the very bottom of that is the Rat Creek Formation, which is a really muddy, messy limestone, but it has a lot of geodes. The Harrodsburg has geodes, but not as many, and the Salem has very few. Gypsum deposits occur down in the basin, and these rocks dip into the center of the basins, either to the southwest or in the northeast. And because these gypsum deposits are here, it implies that there was gypsum in the area when these rocks were deposited. This bedrock map shows the area where the most abundant geodes are in the little area there that's dotted, and they are abundant. Look down at any of the outcrops, and you'll see that they're fairly common in certain beds. This illustrates the selective occurrence. And that's down on Route 446. Geodes show evidence of growth during their development. You can see the beds that are normally like this have been pushed down and up. This is a typical geode with a chalcedony rind. It's hollow with a lot of quartz. And it's sort of a mystery how there's so much quartz in this sea of limestone. Now, people love to collect these rocks. You've probably seen folks, maybe 2 or 3 cars parked. These guys are picking out, this is down at the Harrodsburg Road cut. Very, very prolific. And I have a friend who should know better. He'll stand underneath an overhang with a big long pole and try to knock the things down. And he's a doctor. He should know better. But these people came from Canada, and I once had a field conference to look at geodes here in Kentucky, and we had people from all over the United States, from as far away as Atlanta, Georgia, and Malibu, California. One of the guys was buds with the mayor of Malibu. Geodes are very tough and resistant. And they're very different from the limestone that holds them. And they can withstand a lot of chemical stress, but also a lot of mechanical stress. Because once they're out of the rock, they are subjected to gravity and all sorts of things. And they eventually get into the streams, which we'll see in a minute. But they withstand all this and just laugh at it. There's sort of a life cycle to geodes. And I have another talk about the life and death of geodes. But what we see usually are the adult geodes, or the ones that are near the end of their life. They weather from their rocky home and become concentrated in soil, especially along streams. This is down along 46 by the Blackwell farm. And you see the whole bed here, and over here under the soil is geodes. There are an immense amount of geodes. People in some part of the country actually use them for driveways. They just go down to a stream and load up a pickup truck, and that's their driveway stone. And it's very tough. It'll last way longer than your car. The stones that are in the stream waterways that have been out for a long time get this botryoidal texture that I showed you before. So if you see a geode like this, it's had a very, very long history, and a lot of them are like that. Now, people noted geodes, their unusual characteristics, and some people just love them. This is a place on 135 South Brownstown, and this guy had 1,000, he had tons of them. And he's not the only one. There are other people who have done this. Yeah, this was the geode man. This also afflicts younger people. This is, I don't think any relatives are here, but this is a geologist with his lady friend out collecting geodes in the outcrop when they widened 37. Look how happy he is. People like to crack these geodes. And if you go out to the College Mall, there's actually a bucket of geodes. You can pick one out and crack it. And any rock show or rock shop will have geodes that people just love them. It's almost magic. This is a rock show down at Bedford, and a gentleman from Round County brings in literal trailer loads of these things and sells them. He makes part of his living that way. Other people just collect them, they hoard them. I'm one of these. Now this is not my place, this is a farm near Freetown. But I have, my wife will, how many tons have we got, wife? It's about 20 feet long and 6 feet high and, I don't know, 8-10 feet wide. Thousands. But I do that because I give stuff away to school children and do a lot of STEM work. And kids love geodes. Other people love them for other things. They actually sell them by the ton, or these big baskets, wire baskets of things, which have geodes. And there are a number of places that you can get however many tons you want. But most people like to look inside them, and typically you crack them with a chisel and a hammer. Always need to have glasses and gloves because the quartz is extremely hard and it's sharp. So be careful when you're doing this. And I see a lot of kids doing this, and it's very dangerous. But the professionals actually have a device. Excuse me. Professionals actually have a modified pipe cutter, and they put the geode in here, wrap the chain around, and crack it very nicely. And they sell them by the tons. Indiana hosts these enigmatic geodes. They seem to form early and in selective rock units. Often they have a nuclei of fossil or evaporite minerals, They grew systematically with a series of different materials. The silica comes from the host rock, mobilized by warm brines. Geodes are so abundant that they're even used for buildings. This is Dwayne Pusick here?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah, Dwayne actually made a video of this place. It's the Jasper Geode Grotto, and people in Jasper made a great effort to build all sorts of Catholic motifs. There's a grotto and all sorts of shrines. What is it, an acre, several acres?
That's about 4 acres total. This grotto has actually been removed.
Well, yeah, it recently underwent an assault.
Yeah, this is the St. Joseph Grotto, but there was a Sons of Providence priest by the name of Philip Otapi, who, interesting enough, when he was 4 years old, he was buried for 2 days under an earthquake that killed his parents in Messina, Italy. And when he took over the space in Jasper at the Providence home, he decided they didn't need handball courts, and he had this space to build something. And so he dispatched his assistant, Father Thaddeus, to find the perfect rocks, and he found these rocks in a stream in Heltonville, and they trucked as many as 100,000 geodes from Heltonville to Jasper, and they spent 15 years building the 2 grottos.
It's really worth a view, and also Dwayne has a 15-minute video that's on the web that you can watch. But it's worth the trip. But I'm going to concentrate here, now that you've learned a little bit about geodes, about their use in construction materials. I started with the psychic's house. The areas in red are where there's a lot of geodes. The ones here called Indiana geodes, they slop down into Kentucky. Over in Iowa and Missouri and Illinois, there's another field, and they're known as Keokuk geodes. Very, very similar to our geodes. Same sort of rocks, same sort of occurrences, only they've actually monetized their geodes. They're sold a lot, and they have a big geode fest in that area that brings in thousands of people and a lot of money. There you go, entrepreneurs, think about it. Here. These are areas in red where there's an awful lot of geode stuff. Now, building with geodes consists of all sorts of things, from very, very simple. You see a lot of limestone columns with a geode on top, or little piles of geodes stuck together that are mailbox posts, fence posts. There are all sorts of ways to do it. The simplest is just to throw a few geodes on your landscape, and that's landscape or architectural. Sometimes these get extremely complex. There's a place down by Lake Monroe where all these little flower beds and whatnot, it's acres and acres of it, very complex. Here in town, you have the little rings that are made for flower beds and other things. Sometimes this is telling what the name of the home address is. But they also get artistic. Down in Salem, this is a flower basket complete with handle. There are a myriad of walls or toppings of walls. They are used in museums for display, and a lot of humans just have them around. An incredible number of cemetery fences are made or topped with geodes. This is down south of Bloomington. And of course, you also have them for cat toys. I was going to bring my laser pointer. I'm glad they had one. And I read something just last night that if you really hate somebody who has a cat, bring a red laser, put it on him, the cat will take him out. People love these things, and they build very elaborate things. This is a wall with big geodes on top. This is down in Mitchell. And there are sort of hot spots. Bloomington is a hot spot for geode constructions. Mitchell, Bedford, and Jasper, and a number of other places. And as my wife and I run around this country, we find places all the time. This is it's a wishing well. Who would have guessed? Here's a very common, well, this is at the wishing well place, but it's a geode mailbox holder. They're all over the country. These are sort of interesting because they're matched. Usually they don't care what the colors are, but sometimes more ritzy ones have whitish geodes. You can clean up a geode by putting in oxalic acid. It'll take some of the stain. This is one out in the country, you see, just a geode on top of papilo geodes. It's up 45 toward Brown County. Here in our very own town, Nichols, who was one of the early architects, used geodes as structural elements. This is the first house. This is Terry English's law office, and that's Nichols House, built in 1899. And we see this motif, geodes in the porch, many, many times. I think it may have arisen from here. This is a house in Salem. This house in Salem, and you can see that it's again got the geodes as embellishment. This is one where they picked out stones that are very much the same size and same color. This is in the town of Salem. Salem is another one of these hot spots. And I mentioned not just the porches, but sometimes entire houses. Anybody know what this is? Absolutely, a rock house on 35 there in Morgantown. It's very interesting because the guy built this. He made little blocks. They're little wooden forms, and he'd fill them up with geodes, and basically concrete blocks, but made with geodes. It's very interesting. The house is also alleged to be haunted. I don't know. It's freaky. And I think it's also interesting that the psychic's house is made of geodes. There you can see this close. And then here's the psychic's house, complete with the tarot reading and other things. I just think that's so creepy. But this is not the first house. This is one, this is a gas station that was north of Salem, one of these hot spots. And this has a very colorful name, which I will maybe get to, depending. You won't tell on me, will you? These are houses in North Vernon. There's a whole row of them where they used geodes for embellishment around the windows and sometimes on the chimneys. And you see this from time to time. This is funny. This is a house that I used for an image, and this has got an incredible amount of feedback. This is a house in Bloomington on Crescent Road, and several people said they lived there or they knew about it. And this has the front porch and also the chimney out of geodes. And there are several places that have geode chimneys. And there are some, I just recently got a picture of a fireplace inside a house. So they used the geodes inside to make the fireplace too, but I didn't have time to get it in the door. There's the house again, and you see the front porch and the chimney. And also embellishments in the column.
Where's Crescent Drive?
It's cross street between 17th and 11th. It's getting a lot of traffic now because 17th has been closed since approximately the Ice Age. There's Brown County with a big old chimney. One of the most touching things I've come across is geodes used as memorials. This one is for a young girl, about 15, I think. And obviously their parents had no money. They did pay for a plaque with her name and birth and death dates, but they stuck it together with geodes. And I just think that really is, almost makes me want to cry. But it's down at Nemours, very close to the Empire Stone Quarry. Here's one out in Smith Road where they modified an existing tombstone. And you see these time and time again. A lot of times they have a geode, which I haven't talked about yet, but there are geodes also in igneous rocks. And a lot of the ones you see with the purple amethyst and the big crystals, those actually come from Brazil. And they're not exactly geodes, but they call them geodes. Some of these get real elaborate. Over in Spencer, they have a nice little hut made out of geodes. This is honoring the Civil War dead. And then you can see the stars for those who passed. And geodes of various sizes and shapes. These are all stuck together. Sometimes you've seen them pretty well matched, and sometimes they aren't very well matched. Here's another memorial at the park in Odin, Indiana, and it's to the World War I soldiers. You notice it's World War soldiers. They didn't know there were more coming. This is the thing as it looks. As a rule, they try to have the geodes full and not broken. This one has a couple of broken ones. And this is a site, it's part of the Night Ridge Road Church Cemetery. And it's got geodes all along the top of the wall. Not far from here at all is a tombstone at Roseville with lots of geodes. People also honor their faith. This is a Geode Shrine near Heltonville. This is a very new one near Medora. It's not made entirely of geodes, but there are geodes along the top. And there's the maker, he's very proud of it. And of course the Jasper Geode Grotto that has just all sorts of votive pieces and shrines. And even a grotto, this is an enclosed area that can seat hundreds of people. And just all manner of things made of geodes. Another hot spot is at Bexville, down by Salem. The Cook group, or the Cook people, put a lot of money into fixing this up, and it's actually a destination now. And you can go there and see this mill it operates. But as part of this, they use the indigenous geodes to make foundations, steps, and benches, little storage buildings, even bridges. And this is not the only geode bridge in existence. This is a geode bridge in Iowa. People also make gates. This is a gate at Seymour. And it's sort of unusual in that some of the geodes have actually been cut and polished a little bit. Usually they just use the raw, bumpy geode. Also in the Seymour area, this is a retaining wall. And there are just hundreds of bird baths, totally non-functional, but pretty. And ironically, at the Geological Survey lab on 11th Street, there's one of these that lost its head. This is the only fire pit I saw made of geodes. But all sorts of bases, wells, and just other things are made of geodes. This is down around Crothersville. I think this is the only geode silo. It's in Salem. And it's really a silo. Okay, and at this point, I'm almost done. This is the Keokuk area that I mentioned before. And in September, it's coming up, they have an organized get-together. They call it Geode Fest. And they have just all sorts of people come in, campers, and it's a big deal with thousands of people. They even make their own t-shirts. And out there are many, many places where you can pay them $20 and you get a bucket. And you go out to any of a number of places. And this is Iowa. And all over along here, there are places to dig geodes. And I tried to get somebody who had a lot of land near the lake to operate here, and we could, because it's a lot easier to get to here in south of Bloomington than it is to get to these godforsaken places in Iowa. You know, if you ever gone to out west, don't go through Iowa. It's terrible. Have you ever been through Iowa? Okay, this is the end. That's a tombstone. And I want to thank you for lending me your ears. Thanks very much. And you notice I can joke.
Anybody have any questions, Roger?
Yes.
You said the geodes with the purple are from Brazil?
Yes. There's almost no amethyst in Indiana geodes. I have seen a few examples, but it's very rare. And my wife and I go out to a mineral show in Tucson, Arizona, and they have these things, they call them geodes, but they move them around with fork trucks. They're tons. They have some that are way bigger than I am. And very purple, very beautiful, very expensive. People make stuff that make coffee tables and bathtubs. They're all pointy. I can't imagine that it would be a functional bathtub where you're really dirty. You got to scrape it off. I don't know.
There's one Wonderland that's...
Yeah, that's the amethyst. Most probably from Brazil.
And there was one in Brown County, used to be, in the window of a store that was an amethyst, very big one.
Oh yeah, as I say, there's an incredible traffic of this, and there are entire tents bigger than this room just full of this. Yes?
I would just contribute that. Sometimes you'll find those slabs and they'll be bright pink or bright purple or something, and they can dye, and so they aren't always natural. If they're really brightly colored, they're probably not natural.
Yeah.
Where's the best place locally to buy for you in case you want to build something, build a landscape?
They actually sell them by these big wire, they sell them by the tons. And probably Rogers. I know that down at, on 50 west of Bloomington, or west of Bedford, near Yaron, there's a Red River or some, they sell building stones and they sell them. I mean, they have pallet after pallet.
Indian Creek?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
What's the process of formation? Does it start with a single crystal and then crystals grow from that crystal, or?
My feeling is, remember I showed you the relic anhydrite? In very hot areas, where the water gets really, really salty, it dries out so much that sulfate minerals start to form. And you get clots of these sulfate minerals in an area called a sebka, and there are right now forming in some of the Middle Eastern countries, these clots of anhydrite and gypsum. The thought is that these get buried, and part of this begins to dissolve in fresh water. This is after geologic time is no longer a sea. And you get these sort of hollow areas with relic material. And it begins to, and I don't understand why it does this, but it begins to concentrate silica. And concentrates it in sort of a systematic way, but it encloses some of the anhydrite or gypsum, which was originally there, is mostly gone. And then eventually, and most geodes are full of quartz. They just get completely full. But the ones you see are the ones that people like. And the way to tell if a geode is likely to be useful is lifted. If it's hollow, it's going to be a lot lighter than would be one that's full of quartz.
Hey, I had a comment more than a question. I use a diamond saw to cut them because when you crack them, you get very irregular. And then I realized if I put it in a high concentration of dishwashing machine, it would clean it out, and suddenly I had something that looked ordinary, all kinds of sparkles and just really beautiful things. So it's just, for what it's worth, smacking them sometimes, which I've done, may not, bring out the beauty.
Well, sure, and that's, you're sort of polishing it because of the soap and everything. And people will deliberately polish them. You see them at rock shows, and they can be quite fancy.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have geodes from here in the Smithsonian Institution on display.
Would it be fair to say, of course, you being a geologist, that Indiana's kind of a unique place in terms of against time, ice age, glaciers?
Nah, it's very common in the
Very
Midwest.
common.
Yeah.
But the Midwest in general.
Yeah. Well, anywhere. And we don't happen to have volcanoes anymore, but
Well, it's true.
that can be really changeable if you're in those places. No, that map I showed you with the little red areas. Now, there are other areas that have what they call geodes. And a lot of the geodes that you see for sale, they're very uniform, they're completely round, and those come from Chihuahua, Mexico.
What are
It's shaped like a spindle. It's like this. And I had it laying in my fire pit out front, and a man came selling something one day. And when he started leaving, he said, he called it some kind of name. And he said, it's sort of valuable. So when he left, I took it inside, and it's on the heart. I was afraid he'd take my geo.
And all rocks are valuable. They hold the key to understanding our world. And I'm a most blessed person, not just because of my wife who knows how to run the computer. But people paid me for 40 plus years to study rocks. This is not a scam. And I got away with it.
Our country.
Somebody down here, you haven't had my attention much. Are you all done with me? Oh, there's somebody.
So is there an endless supply of...
Oh, God, yes. If you go to the little streams down around Heltonville and south of the county line, they're just, they wash out all the time. If you're in a stream, you can hear them bumping into each other when it's at flood. And volumetrically, they're not very significantly, but there's a huge volume of this kind of rocks.
Find them in caves.
Beg your pardon?
Find them in caves.
Not so much.
I mean, is there?
You do see them
There's
occasionally.
streams and caves. You think they wash into those?
Usually, a lot of the caves are in the Paoli limestone, which is very pure, and it doesn't seem to make geodes like others. Geodes occur in almost all limestone rocks, but not very often. So, and I've seen geodes all the way up to Lafayette. So where I showed you where they were, it goes farther, but that's where they're really abundant. You could probably go out here in the flower bed, or within 1,000 yards, you're going to find a geode. I wouldn't doubt it. Yes, ma'am.
They make druzy earrings now, jewelry out of the druzy part of the geode.
Oh yeah, people make all sorts of.
If they're beautiful, they're shiny.
They make stuff, I didn't show it, but there's a thing with it's a geode with a plant in it. And they just do everything you can think of.
Well, I was surprised to see that druzy is a special part of the geode.
Yeah, well, it just refers to very small,
Yeah.
interconnected, but nicely crystalline material.
Oh, it is beautiful.
And it is very, very common in geodes. Okay, we got one more back here, I think.
Can you address where people can legally collect them? Because you're not supposed to collect on roadsides, you're not supposed to collect on state or federal property, including around Lake Monroe.
Yeah, they will get
It's private
you.
property.
At Lake Monroe, it is not legal. So this one that we have here is an illegal geode.
Undocumented.
Can you tell people?
It's undocumented, and it's going to vote. Yeah, that was uncalled for. I apologize to my
Me too.
Oh, don't apologize. I guess it was gonna vote twice.
Please, don't get me started. We have a group that meets here on Friday at noon, very conservative people. And there are some folks in this room who attend that. Anyway, you had a question?
No, the house at Morgantown, I used to have a cousin that lived there, and I had a standing invitation to go.
It's had a checkered history.
He lived there before.
And they tried to have a bed and breakfast for a while.
Yeah, I think he was the owner before that.
What is the question?
The rock house there at Morgantown. She knows people who live there. Was it haunted?
Not that they ever said, I don't know. I've asked his sister, but he's no longer with us.
Well, this may have been a ploy to get people to come.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I would not want to stay at a haunted
I
house.
think it's yes.
I have cats, which is God's pleasure. Okay, guys, I think we've had enough of your precious time. Thank you. Come up and look at the poster, handle the geodes, and just marvel at God's great world.
Thanks.